So welcome to BEwell, the BEwell Hub Series. My name is Gary Judge, and today we have Tracy J, and we're going to be talking about mental health in adolescents, in youth. It's a very delicate topic because we see a negative trend of this around the world, where young people are losing a little bit of touch with their reality. A lot of young people are also creating discomfort in society. As in America, we have shootings going on. We have young people misunderstood or feel like they have a message to say to the community, to the world, and they're not being listened to. And so they're taking steps and they're taking drastic actions to get themselves heard, which is also leading to a lot of violence. And so today with Tracy, I'd like to talk about this and see, because when youth is in difficulty, it's not just the youth, it's not the young people, but it's the community has to take some sort of responsibility, whether it's the schools, whether it's the families. There's a lot on the plate there. So Tracy, perhaps you could just give us a little bit of background information. What are we talking about, the mental health in youth? Welcome to the BEwell.
Thank you, Gary. And we are going to cover a little bit. This is a huge iceberg. We probably only touched the tip of it. And as you said, mental health, well-being in youth, the society has to take some kind of responsibility. That's not some kind of responsibility. It's the whole responsibility. We made the youth who they are. It's not just one person or a family or a community. It's the whole society. In my own culture, we say it takes a decade to plant a tree, but it takes a century to raise people. It's multiple generations. You all know that it takes about 3 generations to build a noble. 3 generations, the approximately 60 to 100 years, close to a century. It is a long-term commitment.
You have 2 children, right, Tracy?
Yeah, I do. I have a 13 and 11-year-old boys.
Okay, so are they considered in the youth, or are they just before the youth? How would you consider them? Are they?
Every single time since my younger one turned 6 months old, I saw the rivalry, the competition, because as soon as he's mobile, he's been observing all along, see the interaction between me, my parents, and my parents was helping me at that time. So the kid, especially my young one, he observed for approximately about 5 months since he has his real visibility. He's been observing all along. So as soon as he could crawl and become mobile, he started to attack. He did. And then these 2 boys, they've been fighting for who gets off the car first, who gets the biggest something, the treats. They are constantly fighting because they are only 23 months apart. That's probably a very competitive gap. So I've seen that the rivalry among siblings, and I myself and my older brother, we are also 21 months apart. So that the reconnection between myself and my older brother just happened again between my kids, and I witnessed that all the time through their pre-K, kinder, all the way to grade school. My older one now is 13 in 8th grade. My younger one in 6th grade. Yes, I've seen this.
So are you saying this then? What they see is this because they've seen this between you and your brother, that they are repeating the story again?
I've seen that. I think it happens naturally in the family dynamics when you have siblings are fairly close. In education, we say 36 months is probably an ideal gap. Somewhere between 3 and 5 years in between siblings is a little bit peaceful. After gap, you have this buffer age gap. But within 3 years, it doesn't matter the gender, male, female, male, probably shows more the competition because the same gender. They do.
So are you saying, is this a premise to say that perhaps parents should be looking at a 3-year gap between children, or what are we saying here?
Ideally, yes. I actually tell parents and my friends, who are younger than me, and say if you want to do a little bit of family planning, you want to at least have 3 years in between, but don't go over 5. If you go over 5, you end up with 2 single child. Again, they don't play together anymore because there's a little bit wider gap. But ideally, around 36 months, 48 months is the ideal. Kind mature enough, they deal with the situation a little bit different, but they can still relate. But within 3 years, it's very competitive.
So we're talking about mental health in adolescents, right? And you work as an educator, as a volunteer, as a voluntary work. Tell us a little bit about, what are we learning? What's happening about this mental health? Let's talk about America, because that's where you live, right? You live in America. So let's look at that as an example and not the world, because that's a global phenomenon we can't talk about here today. Let's talk about where you are and what are you seeing in the mental, and why are we talking about mental health? What are you seeing regarding schools, families, these shootings, this disrespect? What's happening?
I think it was not very good before COVID, but after COVID, everything just showed up in extreme. And I do research though, I like to look at statistics and then tell you a little bit about school-related shooting. The latest data we have in 2023 is I think 349 occurrences here in the United States. School shootings, mainly in high school, but it also happened in middle school and elementary. But high school, it stands out the most. The perpetrators are more than 50% are minors. We have basically no gun control in many states here in America, and the culture has been that we have to protect ourselves, right? Kids do have the access, and lots of kids were trained by their parents. I think 12 is the age they can get a hold of a gun. Licensing starts at 16 in many states.
Is the problem, Tracy, to do with the weapon, the gun, or is it just, or someone could use a knife, or someone could use martial arts? They could use something else, or not? Are we talking about the problem is the gun, or are we talking about the problem is a society, the family, the upbringing, the education? What's the problem there? What is the exact?
Society enabled gun is perceived to be cooler. I don't know. My kids, my own boys, they play with Nerf guns all the time. The one with the little darts, starting from very young age. I think about 5 or 6 years old when they were starting preschool. All the young kids, young boys, they tend to like this weapon. Toys.
But if they didn't have a gun, or they couldn't find a gun, would these perpetrators use another weapon?
I will say the chances might be lower, because when I look at the video games that kids are into nowadays, they all use weapons. Yes, sometimes they do have swords and knives, but the majority, I have colleagues in my old, acquaintances, they are game designers. So when they do video games, the number one thing they go is battlefield. They enable the kids to know the tactics, to know how to assemble, disassemble a weapon quickly. My younger one, who was in the summer camp in the past summer, he quickly assembled a pistol, and now that was very impressive. I had the access to watch the whole thing real time, because the camp enabled parents to check on the kids. And I was looking at that. And then later on, I asked him, how did you learn this? He said, YouTube. Yeah, so, that's the education that they are getting.
Yeah, but I mean, we can't stop that really. We can, So the question is, when these young people, these adolescents commit this crime of shootings, is it because of injustice? What is the reason, the main reason they end up shooting? I mean, it could be shooting, it could be stabbing, it could be cutting, it could be, I don't know, but we're saying shooting. But what is the reason? Why are they getting to that point where they have to use a weapon to get their message across? That's the question.
That's mainly triggered by mental health. There's a survey done on K-12 teachers. More than 69% of the teachers support that mental health screening and early detection treatments will protect and prevent the school shooting from happening. More than 69%. And it's not, they think it's going to, they believe it's going to be extremely effective in preventing those shootings from happening.
So mental health is, okay, we can say it's leading to shootings, but it's also leading to academic results. Tell us a little bit about that. What have you noticed in the concentration span of adolescents in this?
I think lots of kids are being labeled. This goes back to mental health and also school testing, standard testing, and also screening with the kids. For educators, easily to categorize profiling kids to be OCD, ADHD, PTSD. It's fairly easy, because then they can offer this special needs to kids who are in need. But because in America, we can tend to overdo a lot of things. Public school has the access, have the resource, and then a friend of mine, I think it's about 5 or 6 years ago, before the COVID, she actually speaks Chinese, Mandarin Chinese at home, and she's not fluent in English. Therefore, her kids were being taught, first language Mandarin Chinese, and then both girls, they were sent to elementary school, and then the teacher said, both of the girls need speech therapy. And she talked to me about it. I said, I don't think they need speech therapy. They need ESL teachers, right? Because they have to level up the kids who had English as second language to get into elementary school. That's the whole purpose of offering pre-K. Kindergarten is actually the official start of elementary school, learning the rules, the routines. Pre-K is offered in some schools. Normally, the school district will combine a few schools and offer one pre-K program in one of the locations, tailored to Hispanic and Chinese, some other Asian language, or any other languages other than English to the kids.
So you're saying mental health is a tendency to rush into labeling children. Is that what you're saying as well? That the teachers and the educators rush too quickly to label the children as so-and-so deficit or speech impediment and so on? Is that what you're saying?
It might, because I have seen that happen over and over again. Because when the teacher sees something it's kind of unusual and there's no resource for them to send them to specific screening, they would say, oh, okay, let's send a letter to the parent, in case something happened, then we're not the one who's liable. We don't want to overlook certain things. And then the burden is on the parents to say, do I really need to have my kids screening for certain things, speech therapy, or OCD, PTSD, all these things need to have a professional diagnosis. Schools can only recommend you. Well, they do have public resources in certain states, but in my school district, no, parents need to go and find a specialist to identify your problem, and then you go back to school to follow up with whatever school's offering. But if you do not do it, teacher already sent you the letter, they're no longer responsible. Public schools, I do understand they don't want anything unchecked. They want to tick all the boxes, and then you parents are the ones who are responsible for your own kids' education, right? We're only sending a reminder. We see this possibility.
So what would you say here, Tracy, if you're giving some advice to schools, to teachers, or to parents? What would you say to look out for and how to move in this situation?
In education, we say there's a trinity, okay? The educator, the parents, and the students. But actually, it's more than these three angles, right? There are community involved, there are schools, administration, and there are specialists who are special educators. They make the diagnosis, they make the recommendations. So for parents, myself as an educator and then parents, I know both sides, the dilemma. Parents have to study, quickly become an expert and know what's going on with the school, what's available out there, and know their kids well enough to make the judgment call. Do I need to go for a testing? Do I have to go for a specialist? Oftentimes, parents will choose to go. What if, just in case, right? Because if you miss that, the crucial year of the kid's development is very hard to reverse the effect. And the kids might be left behind, and some kids might be held back for extra years. For younger ones, it's okay. But if they are already beyond 8, 9, or 10 years old, there's a pressure, peer pressure. You're older, you're taller than other kids in the same grade level. It's not going to be good. And for the ones who's advanced academically, they also have the challenge if they are so good in grades, but mental health, mental stability is not there. Even 6 months makes a huge difference. Kids do look down on you if you're younger, shorter, or skinnier. I mean, in school, especially in kids, it's more like a battlefield. I actually have a war strategy seminar with the LinkedIn. I do that every week on Wednesday. It started out as a book club to educate people about the strategies, tactics in military. But then I realized after I'm going to be on my 4th week, this is mind game. Mind games have a lot to do with mental health.
You teach that in schools? Is that what you do?
I don't teach that in schools. I sometimes, when I'm talking to, at one time I had a class with 9 girls, only 1 boy. And I have seen that the conflict among genders and the age gap as well. And I have to support this boy, how to handle girls of similar age or a little bit older than him. But eventually he had to move out. He had to go to a different class because he cannot take the pressure from the girls. Because when 9 girls start talking, I couldn't even take it. That's just a lot of chaos and a lot of pressure because girls are very expressive. They talk a lot. And this boy was totally on the defense side. And he zoomed out most of the time when the girls start talking. I have seen that. And I thought about, hey, we need to maybe gauge this with a little bit tactics because I like to read those strategies from wars. That was influenced by my older brother. He's the one who's into those things.
But is this a message that we could give to teachers that they have to pay attention to the balance between male and female students in the classroom? Is this the message?
Yes. When we allocate kids into classes, we do in our school, we have about 60 students in 3 different classes. And we always balance out the male-female ratio and also the personality. We don't want to have too many troublemakers. The kids are super energetic in one class because the synergy there is going to drive the class into a direction the teachers don't want to deal with daily. But even with that, kind of like a manage the balance. We have seen teachers send kids out there in the hallway all the time. Yes, because they just want to keep the majority of the class going with the learning. Only 45 minutes, we need to get the things done to keep to the agenda. But if you're being destructive, I'm sorry, you are singled out. You have to be in the hallway. Sometimes 10, 15 minutes enough. Oftentimes I've seen that for the entire class. the kids are just being left out behind. And then teachers, when they have time during recess, during lunchtime, will try to cater to this kid, at least to meet a minimum teaching goal. Yes.
So what happens to these people, these children who are put outside in the hallway, outside the classroom? Are they then discriminated? Are they then isolated? Are they then bullied? What happens to these people? These people who are put outside? How does that?
First, embarrassment, because people walk up and down the hallway. They knew if one kid is constantly being pulled out for a few times, he or she needs to see a counselor. So we have 2 full-time counselors in school. I think they mainly deal with 3rd, 4th, 5th, maybe 6th grader. And so from the age 8 to, I would say 11, it's very problematic, especially in boys. It also happens to girls. Lots of girls nowadays kind of boyish because they want to challenge the boys. They want to follow around with the boys. And if you I actually had my younger one with a counselor one time for a little bit depression because he was not performing well academically. And my older one, who's very studious, and he spends a lot of time to make sure his grades are up to 93 and above. But 90 is not normal for him. He just wants to do well. And then when he was looking at the older brother receiving all the certificates and that recognition, he got depressed. And I thought he's okay because at home, he really showed that he wasn't care at all. But when he's in his class, I think that was the 4th grade, when he was around 10. And the teacher called me one time and told me, oh, I need to have a meeting with you. So I went there and they told me about him being depressed in class. I said, how can I be? Because I saw this happy kids coming to school every day. And the teacher told me, sometimes he's sitting there all alone by himself and they could see he was daydreaming. He was thinking about something else. And they said he might have ADHD. And I was thinking, I don't think he has ADHD, but he's probably depressed. So I spent time with him and then talking to him about the pressure.
Tracy, the word depressed. I mean, when you were young, when you were 10 years old, I don't know, 10, 12, whatever, did the word depress exist? Did you ever feel depressed, or did you ever, I don't know, but I'm sure you daydreamed, in the why not? You were dreaming, like we were all dreaming as young people at school. We want to be a footballer, we want to travel the world, we want to be an actor, model, whatever. You dream. But the word depression,
pressure, there were, in my school days, I went to elementary, middle school in the 90s. So I think that it has a lot to do with generation, the culture. Back then, it was a little bit relaxed. And my parents never have to sign any school paper for me, never. But now I have to check every single thing. Every Wednesday, the school sends a red folder home with the other stuff. I have to check and sign. And at one time, I think I had a problem dealing with the paper probably when they were in pre-K or when they were younger, teachers send a lot of things back home. I have to check every single thing, do every single paper. They were like this thick for a week. And I got mad. It's like, I'm the one who's going to school, or they are the one who's going to school. But then I learned that teacher really wants you to be fully informed. And then when they are getting older, the paper are getting less and less and less. Sometimes they just came home with an empty folder and then they ask, what do you have there? Oh, they said, there's nothing. Teacher just want to have the folder home and know that there's a communication going on. And I do appreciate this open communication. The school wants to have the parents fully informed. But imagine if I have to go to work 9 to 5, I'm coming home with this stack of paper. I would be really upset. But I'm fortunate enough, I'm on this flexible schedule, so I can check in with them.
So we're talking about the word, going back to the word depression. And people who are watching this video later on, maybe not now, might be in this state as well. They might, because the word depression is being used, and the word stressed. I mean, I have a young son, and he sometimes comes home from school and he says he's stressed. And I said, wow, I mean, the word stress is like an overused. I mean, so I said, why are you stressed? Oh, I've had to study today. I said, well, I mean, you that's your job. You go to school, you study, other people work. I mean, that's the way the world goes round. So my question is to you regarding the word depression. So how did you deal with the word depression to hear that your son, 10 years old, is depressed? What was the impact on you at that time?
I think depression, the word itself, is being overused. Lots of time when people, especially young people, they copy the parents, they copy the educator, they copy the adults in their lives. So when they see pressure and they feel this pressure a little bit too much, they just say, I'm depressed. This is too much for me. Don't come to me anymore because I'm depressed. And they use it as a defense. Same as adults. How often you hear people say, I'm a neurodivergent. But we are all neurodivergent. Everybody's brain is different, right? We utilize our brain differently. Some people tend to be more sporty, others may be more studious, they like books other than sports. But when people label themselves to be a neuro being or being depressed, they're actually saying this message, leave me alone. I'm on the way I am, I'm okay. Don't force me into something else. It's more like a defense mechanism. other than the real definition of depression and how many people are really in depression. I think
so what do you do if your son comes home, or when your son or the teacher said, I think your son is depressed? What was your reaction and how did you deal with that?
Well, I would say calm down. Many times we hear depression, we say, oh, we have to deal with it, right? Have to get the medication. My husband, the one who's always good, go to see a doctor. Every time if I start coughing or my kids have a little fever, he said, let's make a point and go to see a doctor, because oftentimes we want to have immediate action. We need to have the remedy right away. Calm down, give it a little time to observe and find out why. Is there a real issue? I think that's the time that we need. And it has a lot to do with the patience. You have to pay attention, be patient, and find out the problem before you solve the problem. Oftentimes, I would say 50% time, there's no issue at all, because we are overreacting. Acting or overreacting is the thing that has a lot to do with the time. Just give it a little time and you will know if you need action or not, if you are reacting or not. And I think you remember when we type in, I need your response in the email, right? You do not say, need your react. We need your response. Response takes time to respond. And you will have a thought process here instead of you jump into action right away. So react and response, there's a huge difference. But I think this happened with the COVID because a lot of people were quarantined, isolated. There are lots of outliners. Not too long ago, I had a person coming to me and asking me, is COVID over? I was like, okay, were you in the cave? But there are people like that because they thought the COVID was never over. We still, in that time, we need to protect ourselves. But when you have this protection thing, this big umbrella over your mind, kind of like everything will trigger your reaction, your response, but response will be diluted into reaction because I don't want to wait. What if when I'm waiting, something worse happen? That's the
the lesson here is, as people are listening to our video, is the lesson is to not overreact, to give some time, some space between the action and, let's say, the response, right? Because that's what you're saying, is to give time. When someone says, if the teacher contacts you and say your child looks depressed, instead of you jumping and fixing an appointment with a specialist, with a therapist, is first to actually sit down, talk to the child, maybe talk to the teacher and see what the situation is before you take action, right? That's what we're saying. What about mental health with students being absent, students not going to school, not wanting to go to school because maybe they feel discriminated, as you're saying, if they're being put out of the classroom, in the corridor, or maybe they're finding it difficult, like that example you gave of speech therapy for those. Can mental health issues like this lead also to students being absent and then falling behind with their studies? Have you had that experience?
I think a school needs to do whatever to make the kids happy and stay in school is number one. During COVID, just to go to school is challenging because all the schools in my school district advocate safety first. And I was having a hard time to understand how come safety becomes first. Because education, safety is guaranteed by the community. School should not be the one who's responsible for the safety. The district, the management, the people, school should focus on education, educating the kids. But we were so shifted into, keep kids safe, away from the sickness, from sick people. The teachers were scared at the time as well because they want to have the kids home as soon as they see them start coughing because they want to have the whole class going, right? We have 25 kids and they were divided into 12, 13 or 13, 12, and they take turn to go to see a teacher. And the teacher will take turn to visit the kids. And with them masked, it's very hard to teach them. And they were just in school for attendance.
So the mental health, just going back onto that, is like, do you think there's a stigma, there's like of, you're depressed or you've got some sort of bipolar up and down, I don't know, mood swings. So you talk to your parents, I don't feel like going to school today, you're kept behind. Is that also something that we can see as a trend, that children, young people are not going to school as due to this mental health issues? Is that something that you've noticed? Is it something that teachers are aware of? And if a teacher's watching this video, what should they do if they do notice that a child has these mood swings and maybe they're not coming to school as often, regularly, they're not interacting with their schoolmates, maybe they're isolating? What should a teacher do if they see these signs?
I think the kids are generally happier in school than home because there's a lot more pressure from the home. But in school, because you have 20 kids, at least, somewhere between 12 to 20 kids in a class, this peer environment, being able to connect with people of their own age is very important. Especially for the family only has one kid, right? They go out, when they were young, the parents will intentionally try to make play dates. But when they get older, kids were built to achieve academically. You need to show that you learn something from school. Parents, you need to know the worth of their tuition. You need to know the worth of the time spent with the education as a product. But kids, at least from the kids I know, if they're not happy, they still come to school. But there are kids in high school that I'm associated with some other educators. They are not able to, because if their parents are not offering a stable finance at home, the kids have to go out and make a living on their own. They are working in multiple jobs in high school, and to fulfill their responsibility with education, it is hard.
But what about the peer pressure, Tracy? We're talking about when a child is at home. You were saying, I don't know, I seem to have a different perspective on this. When a child is at home in their comfort zone, they have everything, they've got their bed, they've got their TV, Netflix, internet, they've got everything around them. When they go into a school, they are in the middle of their peers, but there's also a bit of peer pressure, because to conform to what other people are doing. So there's a little bit of pressure. And when someone is a little bit different from the group, they immediately stand out. And does that cause mental issues or stress or discrimination or detachment? What's your take on that?
The happiness that they can feel at school can never be replaced by the TV, the physical comforting stuff in your home. Because I oftentimes see my own kids going back to school after vacation, especially like this short winter break. Our school started winter break on the 20th. We started school 2 days ago on the 7th of January. This is a little bit longer Christmas break. Normally we have 2 weeks. This year we have 3 weeks. The kids are really ready to go back. So that happens every time with winter and summer break time. They get tired of at home because they know there's a lot of setback academically. When they go back to school, and often as an educator, I see kids coming back from their winter and summer break, they lost their momentum. They were too comfortable at home. They were playing around and vacationing to different resorts. Parents do cater to their needs, whether you are financially able or not. At least, the kids who are not able to travel, they can make a field trip to playgrounds, a little park in the community. They do have a little bit enjoyment, but they are students. They know their top priority is to study. And when they go back to school, lots of kids are kind of depressed. Yeah, this is really depression.
I've got 3 children. They're quite old now. I mean, the youngest one is 16 now. But during the COVID, which was like 2 years ago, he was so happy to be at home. He said, "Oh, this is it." He could do his lessons online. They did everything online. So he didn't go to school and he was okay. And some of the students paid attention, some didn't, because while the lesson was going on, they were playing with their PlayStation. They were doing all sorts of other things as well, not with the lessons. So I'm talking about the situation in Italy. Obviously, you're talking about in America. And my son said it was probably the best time of his life studying from home. Because now what happens is I don't know the hours that the students study in America or in where you are, but here in Italy, they go to school from 8 o'clock until 2. And so that's 6 hours. And in those 6 hours, all the subjects are crammed into those 6 hours. So when they come home and they have like a 10-minute break or a 5-minute break or whatever it is, and then there's no lunch because they finish at 2. So those 6 hours are really full on, intense in the classroom. And so what happens as well, not only that, when he comes home, he has homework to do as well. So it's not like he comes home and says, "Okay, that's it, it's finished." Oh, because then after lunch, he's got to go back to studying until 2-3 hours extra a day. So, but the question is, how is all of this affecting? Is this the situation where you are or not?
Your kid's school, 16, he's your youngest one, right?
Yeah, 16.
And you said that you have 3, so this is number 3, kid number 3.
This is the last one.
I can tell you, he's a happy kid, and he's fairly mentally stable because he probably knows what he wants in life already at the age of 16. And during the COVID year, and with your school in Rome is pretty hard. Actually, American schools are not like that. Public schools, they let you play. If you want to excel, you put in your extra effort, that's fine. But it's not really encouraged. High school is a different thing. High school is a little bit more pressure academically, but for middle school and below, it's fairly easy. And that's why I see kids are happier, playing around. We have a lot of little troublemakers, especially in young boys. They poke each other around, they have fun among their friends, and that's not a thing happening in your kids' school. That's why if I were him, I would be happier at home as well. So my younger one, I like to talk about him. He's a character. He was in 2nd grade the time we had our COVID, and he was happy, sitting there looking out the window like he's in the resort. But when we start our school almost a year and a half later, and he saw this huge difference, the one who really studied, especially girls, who were very motivated to learn things because teachers sending homework home and you don't have a timeline. You do whatever you can to finish it, and that's fine. Just checking with the teacher on Zoom for 30 minutes. The rest of the day is up to you. And parents have to teach, have to make sure the young kids at school will at home homeschooling. We are actually doing homeschooling. Send back their homework assignments.
Maybe it's the educational system.
Your school sound a lot more like Asian Pacific.
No, it's here the education system is too it's too academic. There's very little space for the person to actually, the individual, to express themselves. This is the book, you study this, and you tell me from the book, you tell me this. Again, that's another system. I mean, tell us a little bit about, okay, is it a responsibility, like we're talking about education now, the teacher has to teach, or is the teacher also the educator, or is that something different? Talking about academic and talking about educating the person, the child, on how to be with his peers, but with even in society, responsibility and so on. Is that the responsibility of the teacher?
The educator, now we focus pretty much on teaching alone, teaching academics, because there's something called standard testing at the end. And SAT, CT, this college boards, they said, we don't require the scores anymore. But then they came back, oh, we have to, because that's how we can make sure that everybody is on on the same page, equal ground. We have to even out. There's a lot of politics apparently to do with education. Yes, ACT and SAT score does show the aptitude of the students, when they move on to, college, freshman, sophomore year, and then that they have to gauge how well this kid can learn. It's still, and it will be a big part of the college education. And teachers need to, in our school kind of outliner, we do not teach two tests. But with this principle, our kids in our school, I'm sorry to say this, they fail big time at the standard testing. And as a parent, I had to hire tutors to do their test preparation, because they have no skills. They don't know how to take multiple choice question. You eliminate.
So just to understand this, so this is what you're saying is the teacher in this case is focusing more on educating the student to actually be sociable and live in a community, and less focus on the academic skills. Is that what you're saying?
In the majority of the public schools here in the States, teachers are only focusing on teaching, because teaching is the one that give them the promotion, bring school up to the ranking, A, B, C. You don't want to be D and below. But in my own school, my kids are attending Catholic schools. So we are still focusing on three things. There's a three Trinity, and the other Trinity in education, educator, parents, and students. And there's also a Trinity in teaching alone. I mean, education alone. We need to teach, apparently, academics, the skills, and you need to know. And we need to answer questions that arise from the kids and your fellow educators who are the parents. And also the Catholic education focuses on lots of value.
Is that the responsibility of the teacher in the classroom? That's a lot to ask.
To public schools, it's a lot easier. You only focus on teaching.
I mean, in Italy, the teachers focus on the academic part and stop. If there's any values, there's discipline, that's outside, that's in the family. And so if the child is misbehaving, as you were saying before, they're making fun and they're pushing each other, this is immediately reported to the parents. And then the parents have to deal with that, because the teachers say, I will teach you geography, I will teach you history, I will teach you physics, but everything else is not my responsibility. So there's a big distinction. Let me ask you a question. So dealing with mental health, we're going back to where we were, because we don't want to lose track on. So the mental health in youth, what's being done? What is being done to help, to bring this awareness to this issue? Because if young people are shooting their fellow classmates or teachers, maybe I don't know, are they drinking, their academic scores dropping, they're not going to school. How is that, how is it bringing awareness to this issue?
I'm a big advocate for this trinity. The school, educator, parents, students, they really need to work together to have this mental stability in youth. And being only able to focus on academics is not going to help. And that's why this so-called diversity is a double-edged sword. Kids from different family backgrounds going to one school, and they sit in a classroom. They do not necessarily deal with the situation well. In public schools, they have no uniform. Okay, a kid can come in, wear a Rolex, the other one might be still getting free meal from school. This conflict, this is social status, the huge difference. Kids can see that right away. You don't have to tell. Just by the way that one kid is talking, the other one is listening, you see the gap already. And with that, you can call it injustice, but I would say social difference, or diversity, a better word to say that. And this pressure will become depression for some.
Depression or an expression, right? Not depression, but it could be an expression of violence or an expression of hate or discrimination or racism. Because as you don't feel included in that group, because of your social status or your color or your language or your background, that can lead to two: one, an isolation, or one, an escalation in your...
Yeah, and this all started very visibly exhibited in third grade. When the kids hit about 9 to 10, for girls about 9, for boys about 10, they start, sitting with their friends. In our school, we assign seats. We do not like kids to sit with whoever they wanted to make sure that some kids do not be left out. Otherwise, you will see a group of people sitting together, maybe 1 or 2 will be left out. And then my kids, especially my younger one, he comes home, he complains all the time. How come I don't get to sit with my friends? And I start asking, who's sitting with him. He always wanted to be seated with a few, high energy boys. And they always have a problem with the girls who are kind of talkative. And then that's also the time around 9 or 10, the girls start to think a lot more about the differences in gender, in culture, and they want to be a little bit away from the boys who's lagging behind and mentally like not yet developed yet. And that's the thing that educator has to cater to, try to guide them together. My 2 boys don't have a male sibling at home. They have no idea how the female will be a little bit advanced. Sometimes the girls excel really well in elementary school, and the boys are, it's like, I don't care, you girls can study, go ahead. And over time, in middle school, in general, and I'm saying this because I know I'm overgeneralizing a lot of things, but this shows the different characteristics in academics. I also seen that, I think this has been going on for decades. Girls always perform better. They outperform boys until maybe high school somewhere. Some kids do study hard. The boys know how to catch up in 9th grade and 10th grade. But in American education, if you start from 9th grade and 10th grade, it's kind of late. You really have to study harder in 7th and 8th to be able to excel in 9th grade.
So what are some solutions to mental health in youth? What are some solutions for parents? We spoke a little bit before about not overreacting. We spoke a little bit about actually socializing. I don't know. How can we do this? Is it parents? Because here in Italy, obviously it's the parents' duty to educate the child. So looking at their peer group, looking at their social structure, looking at the responsibility, all of this, what solutions are there for us? Is there a lifestyle? Is more attention from the parents? What should we do? What advice could you give us?
I would say everything starts with the family, and the parents need to be parents. Not too long ago, I was talking with a few educators about parents don't behave like parents. Parents behave like teenagers. As soon as they see a problem with their kids, they start sending email to schools. They think this thing came from school, but no, it only shows up in school, but it came from the family. And in our school, let me tell you something interesting. I was surprised to see that all the teachers' email were removed from our website. There's no access from anybody at all. One time I wanted to send an email to my teacher on something not very important. So therefore, I called and asked, what happened to our website? How come there's no communication at all? And the receptionist actually gave me a reason. And she said, there's a lot of spam email coming to the teachers, and teacher had to deal with them all the time. Therefore, we remove it. Just tell me your name, which teacher you're looking for. I'm going to give it to you over the phone. And that's the first time ever, because normally, we just go to the website, click on, the link, and then we'll send the teacher email. But that's not the case anymore. So I understand that there's a lot of, email, and also it's time consuming to go through the email daily, aside from their teaching jobs. Teacher only has about 2 hours of office time after the dismissal. And sometimes we do have teachers arriving at school at 6 o'clock in the morning, and their teaching starts at 8, and then the dismissal happens somewhere between 3:45 to 4 o'clock, and teachers will spend an hour, another half. But that's still from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock. It's already long enough.
It's a long day.
Yeah, many teachers have to grade some papers at home, so they're actually working much more than 8 hours. Plus the pressure and the answer. I did see email reply from teachers on weekends, and I was so impressed. They did not have to reply. But if I work full-time at school, I would never reply, because that's sending a message to the parents that I'm also working on weekends. And then the expectation will be built up. How come you do not answer my email during the week? And that's too much to ask for, right?
Giving some advice, giving some insights to teachers, any teacher that's watching this video. How do we get the children, when you've got a group of 10, 15, 20, 25 children, kids, young people all together, how can you get them all being one? what is something that they could do to actually get them, not all me and you, but we as one, and that way it's easier to work with a group and not 25 individual students? Is there something that they can do? I don't know, I'm going into like breathing, silence, closing their eyes, just focusing, being that 2 minute. Is that possible or just not possible in a classroom?
As a teacher, I always look at the leader of the class. There's always one or two leader of the class. It's never the one who perform academically well. It's always the one who has the highest energy, who provoke or inspire the whole class to do certain things. And therefore, in K-12, I would say K-8, I have more experience with, we tend to put less than two those energetic kids in one class to make sure the class is manageable. And you have to convince that leader to do certain things, and he can lead the class. It's more like you delegate your authority, and you encourage this kid. In our school auction, we always auction something off to be the teacher of the day, and people go for it. The parents will ask the kid, do you want to be the teacher of the day? Yes, this little one, especially when younger, 5th grade and below, they like to be the teacher of the day. They even want to be the principal of the day. When you delegate the authority, the kids feel they are empowered. And this empowerment, this energy will, and you say that encourage others or create a competition. Other kids also wanted to perform. They want to be the popular one, to be the most outspoken one. And they want to, one way or the other, and you want to be sporty, you want to be more entertaining, you want to be the one that drives more attention, or you just want to be academically smart. Kids want to excel in certain way, in their own capacity. And that needs a lot of encouragement. Encouragement comes from more than from their own peer, their own fellow students than the teacher. Teacher's confirmation, teacher's recognition comes second. But that other students in the class, how they see you, how they regard you as the leader or as a supporter, as a true friend, or as an opponent, that consider more.
Okay, so there you are. That's something that to keep in mind when you're teaching, is to actually make allies with some of the students in the classroom, to delegate or to actually get them supporting the teacher to create the right environment. Looking at them as we're coming towards the end of this talk, Tracy, if someone wants to go a bit deeper into this subject, are there any books, podcasts, anything that you could recommend someone could actually look into, get a better idea of mental health in youth, some of the issues that we spoke about, classroom, family, community? Do you have any recommendations?
Well, there are lots of NGOs out there. They advocate mental health issues, especially in young people and also adults as a whole. And there's I think a website called mentalhealthfirstaid.org. And there are also some other sites I can send you later. And I don't really read those books anymore because books takes a couple years to publish. And there are books on mental health in COVID time. But I find there's a lot of negativity around, and they are not necessarily focusing on the way to deal with it. It's more expressive about the depression, the isolation, the problem they see, because we're still working toward to how to deal with it. And adults are still struggling from it, and being not able to cure yourself, and that pressure also transferred into the younger adults. Teachers are still struggling and fighting to get back to, we are behind. We are really behind for the kids who went through their younger age. I think the recover is quicker because young kids do have the tendency to recover quickly, right? They do not dwell on things. But for adults, it takes years to recover. And we still say, oh yeah, because of COVID. And myself, I do that too. This has happened during COVID.
Well, we have moved on. It has been 2 years now, so more than 2 years. Let's hope that. So listen, as we come to the end of this talk, so you tell us a little bit about Tracy. What are you working on? Or do you have any personal projects that you're working on away from the mental health in young people? And if so, how can people get in contact with you if they want to go a little bit deeper, they want to collaborate with you, or they tell us a little bit about some other projects that you're working on?
Education is a big part because I'm a lifelong learner. I like to learn things. I've been in interpretation, translation, and copywriting for decades, starting in 1999. And I also worked in corporate America for a few years before I became a contractor, because I don't want to be hired as an employee. I just wanted to be the outsider. The independent contractor gives me the flexibility. So we were connected on LinkedIn. So I'm very active on LinkedIn nowadays for the past 4 months now, in September 2024. A few projects I'm working on. One of them is education. I am working toward to become the voice of LinkedIn business. I'm helping business to create their online contents more audio than visual, because I discovered that the audio works are more powerful. With many people are mobile driving around here in the States, audiobooks, audio contents are very important. And believe it or not, audio, especially as a radio, is coming back. I did not know that until later this year. Yes, we have revived a few classical radio stations because people do listen more now than I think reading. You need more attention, is more active. The radio is relatively passive, but there's a lot of thinking going on while you're driving. For lots of Americans who are on the road, they do lots of thinking. They listen to different things. And it used to be CDs, right? And then later on from the phone, podcasts, Spotify, and radio stations are back on. And lots of radio stations have their online presence. And CNN has a radio, TikTok has audio, and everybody's audio. I think even Hollywood are making a lot of audio productions now. For computer CGI, animation, movie stars. You know, there's a big.
So we're gonna be finding you, Tracy Cow, working on an audio book, an audio radio station. We don't know. Listen, thank you very much. As we come to the end, very interesting topic. We only touched on the iceberg because there's so much that we could go into. Thank you for your expertise, your insights, your experience, and hope to see you again on the BEwell Hub Series sometime. So look after yourself.
Thank you so much, Gary. It was very interesting. And be well. It's very
stay well. Be well.
Yeah, stay well. Be well. Whether you're young or not so young or seasoned. Be well. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.